Hi, welcome to this podcast, Famous Book Lessons and Summaries, The Big Questions of Life by Om Swami. Fill your heart with loving kindness, your time with noble actions, your mind with good thoughts. You will realize your soul, yourself. The author embarks upon this journey called The Big Questions of Life with an inquisitive tone as he asks us, and maybe himself, if there really is no way out of the suffering that this life sometimes seems to be. He continues to explain to us that no one can really be a perpetual companion for us in our suffering. However, they can share our loss, they can share our pain. In his unique view, he writes that suffering is not simply what it is. It is not what is happening to us, but rather how we perceive what is happening to us. It's not the actual situation that sits heavily on our vulnerable hearts, but the way in which we choose to interpret it that pushes us into a darkened corner of self-inflicted misery. Focusing on the same, Swami talks about how it isn't enough to just make partial and half-hearted attempts at untangling the chaos that is associated with our feelings. When confronted with difficult people and difficult situations, remember to always react in a manner which befits not only your demeanor but also your soul. Any reaction, expression, or words that do not display the goodness of your true inherent nature should be discarded mindfully and patiently before any harm is unintentionally done. When we begin to understand that in life, difficult situations and the many storms that come along with them aren't avoidable, when we learn not to perceive these events from a perspective which immediately pushes us into the victimized mentality of why me, and instead learn to embrace these situations with a sense of absolute and pure grace, we learn one of the most important lessons of this blissful existence, a lesson that Swami perfectly terms as the ABC of life. Sometimes life will offer you a burning coal when you are least prepared. Worse is when you do not even deserve it. Do not burn yourself with that unexpected offering. Instead, use it to strengthen your position to forge ahead. The author talks about another very important lesson in this beautiful literary journey. That is the wisdom to know that whatever be the cause of our grief, it is temporary and it is not going to be there forever. Just like most workings and sensations of this worldly existence are cyclical in nature, the good and the bad times are also often recurring. The author talks about how the gifts of heart teach us, elevate us, and above all, they force us to connect with our highest state of consciousness for answers and solutions. For when the raging storms of catastrophe come crashing upon the doors of our existence, compelling us to walk into the seemingly frightening vastness of a universe that shall challenge us, yet bring back to us our long lost courage. The lamp of bliss lights most glorious in the heart of an honest person. Om Swami, being an intellect of the rarest kind, reflects some light on the importance of being graceful and honest in our lives. He explains to us that grace may take time, but it most certainly arrives. The world may have terrible people who harm and hurt others, but it also has many beautiful people who are always eager to help others. What Swami has conveyed to us through these beautiful words is a lesson that we must always cherish and keep very close to our hearts. When we come across people who try to torment us, we should simply stand tall on the pillars of our own faith, grace, and truthfulness. In life, we should strive to be someone who others look up to in desperate times of need. We should exist as beautiful expressions of love, empathy, and kindness. For kindness is the highest form of morality in life, and even the toughest of time should not blind us towards the suffering and pain of the people that exist silently in the same world as ours. Throughout this book, Om Swami writes on how, as long as we hold on to our faith, we will be extricated from the most severe of storms. But when we are helped, when the skies clear up and the storms can no longer be found, we must move forward to return the help that we had once received from this universe by extending a hand of help and comfort to anyone and everyone that is in need of them at that time. Towards the end of this transformational yet extremely heart-touching book, Swami has dedicated an entire chapter to grief and why often in our lives we are unable to overcome our grief. It's absolutely true that we spend most of our lives trying to avoid grief. We want to hold on to our sense of happiness, even if this very happiness prevents us from acquiring any wisdom about the true nature of our existence. If our expectations from life are met, we are happy, else we are sad. As a river creates its own passage, grief runs its own course as well. These lines from the book are enough to encapsulate how grief flows and exists inside our hearts. We grieve only when we have lost someone more than we ever expected to. We grieve because the flowers of love and affection that we had so delicately planted in the gardens of our lives have now been uprooted completely and against our expectations. Swami had time and again emphasized throughout this book on the impermanence of things and relationships. The ones that we have loved and cherished will one day exit our lives. This is not negotiable. Impermanence is the ultimate truth of this universe, and even though we need to accept this truth gracefully, we must also learn that grief is a very valid and essential emotion. We cannot outrun our grief. We must feel it and accept it like all the other essential truths of this life. Grief does not work like that because love has never worked like that. Swami writes about how one day our grief shall flow into the vast and endless ocean of love. But until then, we must experience it and allow ourselves to have the courage to believe that this passage of grief isn't the end of our life's beautiful journey. For how can we ignore our grief when we have never once able to ignore love and its purity? In furtherance of this journey, I'll urge you to explore the many literary works of Om Swami, including the big questions of life. I hope that his words and wisdom are able to help you in learning more about your true inner self. This series of podcasts was born to provide you with life lessons, business lessons, and summaries of your favorite bestsellers. Subscribe and follow us today, and if there's any book you need a summary on, do let us know. Also, share your thoughts with me and I'll be glad to respond to you. I'm Onuzike Chupagozie. See you on the next one.